Hello, everybody. Welcome along to the Premier League check-in podcast with myself, Benjamin Bloom, and the great Matt SB. More wins, Matt, down at the bottom of the Premier League table. Thank God we're not in that mode we were 3 or 4 weeks ago, where we were literally waiting for the first win for about 4 teams. And don't know if you agree, the big winners this round, I think Wolverhampton Wanderers back-to-back wins. All those people in the comments, Matt, that were telling us, well, they just played all the top half and they're about to play the bottom half, are probably sitting quite smug now because the results are turning and they have an informed player. And perhaps there's an argument, Matt, the player with the greatest value to his team in the Premier League at the moment, given where Wolves are and what he's doing, could be Matheus Cunha, who is on absolute fire. Good morning, mate. Let's give Wolves their flowers today.
Yeah, good morning. What a result that was. Well done to Wolves and the Wolves fans. Enjoy it because it's been a long time coming. You know, it's been such a slow, stuttering start, and we've been looking at this. 10 games without a win, and we're like, oh, geez, that's not great. And then back-to-back wins, and all of a sudden they're at the bottom 3. So it just goes to show how crucial the results are down at the bottom. The traffic is now moving. The tide is rising, whichever analogy you want to use. But Wolves, over the last 2 games, are the best performers. And the result as well. I mean, we've spoken about Fulham being fantastic this season. So I thought to myself, if Wolves come here and get a draw on the back of that win at home to Southampton, that would be good. But to dispatch of them 4-1 was quite something. And like you say, Cunha, oh, what a player. Those players can literally make a massive difference. They can carry up 4 or 5 places. We're going to come on to his goals later, Wolves fans, don't worry. But what a win. And goes to show as well, sticking with Gary O'Neill, being patient, realising that it was a difficult run of games and that the games are going to get a bit easier, and giving him that chance. It's paid off so far. At the same time, they're 17th. And if they lose the next 2, they're back in there. But for now, they're the team moving in the right direction.
Yeah, Wolves definitely the big winners. And even with the back-to-back wins, Matt, it is 8 points in 4 as well. And, we'll come on to Ipswich in a minute and talk about 5 points in 3 games. And can you spot 4 or 5 of them during the season? My God, 8 points in 4 games. You don't need many of them. You need 4 of them, and that's 32 of your points, and you're pretty close that you're 1 win away from safety, we think, possibly there. Just to round out on Wolves, because Cunha is, spoiler alert, obviously getting mentioned in Worldie of the Week later in the show. But to round out in Wolves, Matt, 6 more games in a row against current bottom half side. So it is stark, the kind of fixture difficulty change. Matt, I'm going to move on to Leicester, and later in the show, Matt's moment involves Leicester and Steve Cooper. So Matt will be talking about Leicester later in the show. So for now, it'll just be me. Obviously, the big story is the manager going, and you're going to have to wait for that because Matt's all prepped to talk about it. Whatever you say about the hire in the first place and the decision to stack Steve Cooper, on pitch, very bad for Leicester. I know they're playing a Big Six side in Chelsea, but 4 defeats in 5. And Leicester fans won't thank me for doing this, Matt, but I think you can explain away as not very sustainable the last 3 good results for Leicester as well, because we discussed it against Ipswich where the game looked like it was getting away from them. There could have been a penalty call going Ipswich's favour, then Calvin Phillips gets sent off, and then they smell blood and get a 94th minute equaliser. Could have gone the other way. Southampton, another red card, and fair play to gone and leveraged both situations, but a 98th minute winner in that game. And we were sat here saying, can you be relying on other teams going down to 10 and scoring late goals? I mean, if you can do it, amazing, but I wouldn't want to be relying on it. And even the win against Bournemouth, which was quite Steve Cooper-y, but I think it was a bit of a worldie by Buonanotte. And Bournemouth, by whatever FootMob measures a big chance by, Bournemouth apparently missed 5 big chances. So Leicester are our big losers this week, but Matt will be speaking about them later in the show. So we'll get back to Leicester. Matt, we normally give sides playing the big teams a pass and kind of ignore it when they lose. But Southampton were actually quite good against Liverpool. And are we going to talk about them being hapless when they should have got something from the game, perhaps?
Well, what I thought was quite interesting is these bottom six, they can all take some form of positive from this weekend because 3 or 4 of them got results. And then the ones that didn't have other reasons to maybe be optimistic or feel positive. And Southampton are one of those that, yeah, okay, it's frustrating to lose to Liverpool 3-2 when you're 2-1 up with 20 minutes to go or something. But bear in mind, you played Liverpool, who've been easily the best team in the league so far this season. The frustrating thing is, though, the Southampton fans will see this as points dropped or a good performance gone to waste because of the goals they've conceded. It's mistakes again, Ben. Do you know what? I look at Southampton sometimes and I think, you're a very good team, actually. You're better than I think. But then I look at that mistake and I think, you can't do that in the Premier League. You really can't. And it's cost them points in quite a few games this season. The first goal, it's McCarthy, isn't it? He's bowling the ball out from the back. And then the second goal, the goalkeeper's positioning. The third goal's a handball as well. It's just a comedy of errors, which, it's not funny for the Southampton fans, but you can't make these mistakes in the Premier League. And I feel like we're going around in circles saying this. Still quite a few positives. It wasn't a 3-0. It was a 3-2, and they were actually leading this game. But, really frustrating. But if you try and draw the positives and learn from your mistakes, you might still have a chance, but you've got to learn from those mistakes soon.
10 defeats already in the 12 games reads very, very badly. And I sometimes think if the Premier League was like it's been in decades past and it's not, seemingly impossible down there, you'd think a team losing 10 of their first 12 might be adrift in days gone by. And we talked about the Wolves fixture lineup. Southampton, have had their share of, quote, nice fixtures so far. And Brighton, Chelsea, Villa, Tottenham is the next 4. They're all top 8. And really, I'm only saying top 8 and not top 6 because Villa have just had a little slip as well. So it's difficult, Matt, for Southampton. Palace, do you know what? I wasn't much across this. I was working on Saturday and I looked and I saw they'd drawn 2-2 at Villa. And you kind of think, okay, that's a good point. And then just doing the research this morning and looking at the goals and looking at the numbers, they've given up 3.11 XG, and I think they've conceded a couple of goals in their past few games. So as much as we're quite high on Palace, still a bit worried in terms of defensive wise, and they've obviously lost ground to Wolves and dropped into the bottom 3. And Matt, my God, I will be there. So a week today, we're recording on Tuesday. It is Ipswich versus Palace, which feels massive if either side can go and win that game. Listen, I've done a watch along of Ipswich Man United and hosted the Blue Monday podcast. So if anyone needs to know what I think about that, there's literally 3 hours of me talking about it on the internet. But pretty positive result for Ipswich. I know comments will say, yeah, but they didn't win again.
Yeah, well, and maybe even get some comments saying could have won the game, actually, looking at some of the chances. You've got to take the positives. There has been that positivity around Ipswich Town for, over a year, really, with the double promotions and everything. You want to keep that bubbling because in the Premier League, it can turn very quickly for some teams. I mean, you look at Leicester City as an example that I'll come on to later, where it feels very negative around the place. But for Ipswich, yeah, it's a point gained. Bearing in mind it was Manchester United's big day. This wasn't about Ipswich Town. This was all about Amurim.
Yeah,
so
true.
No,
True.
Honestly, I'm really pleased that Ipswich Town kind of ruined that party, and obviously they had to come from behind. Conceded early, obviously frustrating, but you don't let the game get away from you. We've said that before. Don't concede the second goal, and the timing of the equaliser brilliant as well, just before half time. And we'll take the positives in terms of the performance as well. Could have won. Yes, it means Ipswich go to 18th because, as we've said before, we expected Palace and Wolves to maybe start putting results together. But as long as Ipswich are churning points on here and there, and it feels like they are going at, I'm trying to work it out, is it about 0.8 points per game? It's not quite 1 point per game, but it's just under. And you don't need 38 points to stay up. We've said before it's probably going to be about 35, maybe even less. But you're moving. That's the main thing. You're chucking points on. I mean, 5 points in the last 3, 4 points from Tottenham and Manchester United. So definitely take the positives there. But it's the 6 pointers. Maybe you need to win that Palace game because you don't want to get to Christmas on one win. But you've got a massive run of games coming, and this will define where. Well, this is where things will spread out and define where Ipswich Town are going to be possibly come January, February.
Yeah, very much so. And it feels like a little bit now, Matt, all of those players coming in the summer and what's the team going to be and how quickly are they going to settle. And now you kind of know it's definitely Muric in goal. It's definitely Tuan Zabi's got the fullback position. O'Shea's settled quite nicely. Hopefully Greaves comes back. You know it's going to be Davis, obviously. Morsey has stepped up to Premier League level and continues to amaze everybody. Caust or Phillips, that's up for grabs. Hutchinson's starting to play now. Smodics has settled. Delap has settled. So it's now, we knew what the League One team was. The Championship team was fairly similar, but now I think we know what the Premier League team is. And yeah, it's interesting you pick out the kind of points total, Matt, because to move on to Everton, they've dropped a couple under the point per game now. So they're projecting, 34.83. So it is under. So 35 at the moment essentially takes you above Everton if they, roll out the rest of the season and what they've been doing. 0-0 against Brentford. And it's a bit alarming. Well, 2 things alarm me, Matt. No win in 4. Okay, fine. But no goal in 3. And I do think Sean Dyche, there's a bit of snobbery about him. I think he's a really good football manager. But taken to excess, the kind of style can be a bit this way. And, there's good players in those front positions for Everton, and they're not delivering. And then you have this idea of when will the takeover happen? Will it happen and a managerial change then immediately happens? Will it rumble on and that unsettles Dyche with the spectre of that happening? Will it happen? I think there's a deadline in January. Will it then run into the transfer window? Now, I can see it being, unless they say to Sean Dyche now, the takeover is about to happen, but you're the manager until the end of the season. Unless they say that, I think the takeover could be a hindrance. Matt, do you agree?
Could be. It could be. Strange with Everton. They seem to go on little streaks, by the way. Obviously, they started the season with a losing run, didn't they? Just couldn't find a win, even though they went 2-0 up in a couple of games. And then turned it around really nicely and picked up some good results together. Now on it's back-to-back draws. I won't say it's a drawing run yet, but a drought, should we say, in terms
Definitely.
of goal scoring. And it's just so funny with Everton. I mean, not maybe funny for the Everton fans that they can't. They're definitely good enough to survive, but then they can't quite get away from it at the same time. I mean, they're 15th at the minute. I said a week or two ago it was their spiritual home, 16th place or something. So, I mean, just under a point per game. Maybe things have dried up a tiny bit. As I've said, for Ipswich and for every team coming into December, a busy run of games. You want to be playing your best football in December because you got more games. And testing time for Everton. But we like Sean Dyche. We think they've got enough quality in that team to stay away. And we will give them the credit, of course, for back-to-back clean sheets. But I think given that the Brentford game they were playing against 10 men, might be an opportunity missed, really.
Yeah, very, very much so. So there is Matt's relegation sandwich buffet for another week. And what I do think, though, is staying interesting because we've come on a couple of weeks, Matt, and been worried that 2 were going to go adrift or, God forbid, it would just be the 3 promoted teams going adrift. That may happen. It isn't happening yet, and we've got a good kind of number of teams in there. But this week, our big winners are most definitely Wolves. Our big losers are Leicester, and there will be more from Matt on Leicester later in the show. Okay, worldie of the week, Matt. Can I be completely honest? I'm going to peel back the curtain here. We spoke yesterday, didn't we? We did League One, and I said I'll do a poll for worldie of the week, and I sat and watched all the goals, and I chickened out of it. I was like, that's too difficult. I cannot narrow that down to 4. And exceptional week for Premier League goals, Matt. What are you thinking for worldie of the week?
Well, we've said, yeah, a vintage week. I mean, sometimes we're sat here and we're kind of like, there wasn't any screamers. Now, for me, as a kid growing up watching football, my favourite kind of goals were long range into the top corner and, just smashing it in from outside the box. And we had quite a few of them this week. But I think as I've got older and wiser, Ben, I've started to appreciate the sort of Dennis Bergkamp goals, where it's that
just
first
imagining
touch.
You drinking like red wine and watching clips of Dennis Bergkamp, yeah?
That's it, yeah, watching classic match of the day. That's it. His first touch, close, neat ball control, and that is the best way to sum up Cunha's first goal. But we need to say it was 2 brilliant goals from Cunha in that win at Fulham. And I know we've already spoken about Wolves, but what a win that was. And the goals they scored, they deserve a lot of flowers. But the first goal for me is unbelievable. Like I say, just like Dennis Bergkamp, sets them on their way. But I will give a special mention to that second goal as well, where he bent it into the top corner. I mean, what a day for Wolves. But so many good goals, really, Ben. I mean, I was sport for choice. Was there any others that you were considering?
Yeah, I really like Matoma for Brighton purely because of the no-look on the run assist. I think it was João Pedro who slipped it through, and Matoma's great. Yeah, really loved that one. And the Southampton goal was really good, wasn't it, on the break? And I love it when you see a counter-attack unfolding and you can see it better than the player often, can't you? Because you're above or you're watching the hard cam or whatever, and you're like, if he puts it in that exact place, and I love it when they just slide the pass through exactly where it needs to go and you get the finish. But I'm going to have to agree with you, mate, that I have a special dispensation. If a player has 2 contenders in one game, I think you kind of have to aggregate the 2 together and just give them the win for whichever. But yeah, lots of he's definitely the player of the week in the Premier League, isn't he? For multiple reasons, Cunha.
Sorry, Ben, by the way, I swear he won it last week, or was it the week before the international break where he scored the screamer against Southampton?
Yeah, he might have. Yeah,
he's won it back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, the one spinning away into the corner. Yeah, look, me and Matt talk about a lot of football on a regular weekly basis. So 2 weeks ago is like 3 months in normal dog years for us two. But he did, didn't he? Yeah. So there you go. That sums it up. Cunha, MVP of the week and winner of Worldie of the Week. Okay, we didn't say too much about Leicester in the relegation sandwich buffet all you can eat, but massive news. And I think it broke during, I was doing the watch along for the Ipswich Man United game. So Sunday afternoon, Matt, immediately after an international break and 2 weeks off, Leicester fire Steve Cooper after 12 games. Now, there's a lot to this. Away you go.
I don't really know where to start because there is a lot to this. The timing, first of all, a bit strange. I mean, if they'd have done it during the international break, it might have made a bit more sense. And they've done it one game after, and literally the day after they'd lost. You usually get an announcement on the Monday, but maybe that suggests they've got someone in mind. Maybe by the time this video comes out, they might be announcing someone. I think that will be the case, considering the fact that Leicester are playing at the weekend and then again in midweek, because we've got this busy run of fixtures coming. They'll want to have someone in place. And let's talk about Steve Cooper before we even try and figure out where they might go next without him and who they're looking at. I like Steve Cooper. You like Steve Cooper. We're big fans of Steve Cooper. I think I have come to terms with the fact he's, given his track record, he's definitely a very good championship manager and maybe not the best Premier League manager, but I still think he gets a bit of unfair criticism where I think he's managed 2 clubs that have just come up to the Premier League and had them around a point per game. I think that first season for Forest, 38 points. Second season, they were just under a point per game when they fired him. And Leicester, 10 points from 12 at the minute. So with newly promoted teams, he's kind of got them with a fighting chance.
Chaos at both Matt, to be fair. Like 20
Okay,
signings at Forest and potential points deduction and, all of that stuff. And team, as you mentioned, just changed division. So just to give him, some mitigating factors.
And a very difficult job coming into actually this summer because Enzo Maresca did a great job. Leicester fans, well, actually, it's funny. I mean, Leicester fans are going on about how they love him, but at the time, I remember in the Championship, some of them,
True,
some of them didn't like him. I think him coming over the weekend with Chelsea and beating them probably doesn't help. It probably gives them some like flashbacks and what have you. But also the fact that we all thought Leicester were going to get a points deduction, and coming into that job, replacing Maresca, points deduction. I don't know. Maybe not that appealing job.
He would have factored it in, the possibility, wouldn't he?
Yeah, no, I agree. But they've spoken about how they were linked with Graham Potter, certain other names in the summer, and apparently, some of them were put off by the fact of the possible points deduction, thinking it could be a bit of a lost cause. So credit to Steve Cooper for going in there thinking, I'll give it a go. Obviously, clever work from the Leicester City lawyers when it came to the wording of that. We've spoken about the points deduction that they're going to avoid. So maybe now they think, we've actually got more of a real fighting chance of staying up. And with Steve Cooper, we're not sure if we're going to be that convincing. I mean, I think if Steve Cooper was given the full season, they'd have a chance. I'm not saying with certainty that they'd stay up because it's a very difficult league, of course, but I think they'd maybe either be just above or just below that dotted line. But ultimately, I think what it is it's the style of football, and the Leicester City fans just are not buying into it. I think he was completely up against it when he first came in, because we've seen, maybe even some Forest fans. I mean, I know most of the Forest fans really love Steve Cooper, but some of them were like, his football doesn't work in the Premier League. And then the Leicester fans like, oh no. And I think, to be honest, the first game against Tottenham, that should have been seen as a real positive. Oh, let's get behind him. We picked up a draw. We're newly promoted. Let's see where we get to. But I think you are right in terms of the results they have managed to get. That there's maybe some sort of unsustainability about it. I mean, the Southampton game, they were very. I don't want to say they were lucky, but in a sense they kind of were. The Ipswich game, very very late on. Could have even snatched something from the Arsenal game, didn't they? And then the Bournemouth game was, like you say, very Steve Coopery. He's just got a way of grinding out results. And like I said, the football, they're not going to maybe create lots of chances, maybe not going to have the best XG, but he'll give them a fighting chance and they might be a bit better defensively than some of the other teams down there. But they've not taken to it. And I think seeing names like Ruud van Nistelrooy popping up here, there and everywhere, they've thought, I'd like someone like him, attacking manager, like I say, Graham Potter, maybe now that he might be attracted to the job if he knows that not going to get a points deduction now. I don't know. I just think I feel sorry for Steve Cooper. I do. I think I want to say this, by the way, to the Leicester City fans. Every football fan has a right to have an opinion on something, and I don't blame you if you want to have Steve Cooper out. What I do have a problem with, Ben, is some of the people that have really attacked him personally online and stuff. And, you can have a go at his tactics. Dinosaur football, we didn't like that, blah, blah. That's okay. You can have that view, but don't be horrible to the man who is genuinely a really nice guy. And I'm not saying that makes him a great manager, but I genuinely think he's getting a lot of unfair criticism from some people. And I feel bad for him. I hope he gets a good job, actually. I mean, Coventry City's vacant at the minute. I wouldn't mind that. As we said, very good at the Championship, but maybe the Premier League, I don't know. He's proved not to be as good in the Premier League as he is in the Championship. But it'll be interesting to see where Leicester City go now. But I thought the writing was on the wall. I know they're not in the bottom three, but I just thought that the Leicester City fans, the noises coming out of there wasn't good.
I did a poll yesterday, and you don't know the result of this. And the question said, were Leicester City right to sack Steve Cooper? Simple yes or no. How do you think that poll went in terms of percentage, Matt?
Oh, in terms of percentage?
Yeah.
I'm going to say no, and I'm going to say 70%.
You promise you haven't looked at this?
No, honestly.
69% no. So,
wow.
Yeah, you're very much in tune with the subscribers on the community tab on the Benjamin Bloom.
We have got quite a few Forest fans that watch, and they might be voting no, to be fair.
Well, that's true. That's true. Well, but you've just said it yourself. Anyone, anywhere is entitled to, dive in on the polls and whatnot. Matt, I think you've summed it up quite succinctly, I think if your theory is correct, there's some sense in that -6 and having to score 41 points essentially, as opposed to 0 and having to score 35. Does that mean you can be a bit more attacking and have a different type of manager? And I think as well, maybe people are looking at Mateus Cunha and the goals Wolves are scoring, and maybe Ipswich as well, and they're attacking teams, and Liam Delap is, kind of at it. And maybe they're thinking, the defensive style isn't going to work this season. Defensive style always works to some extent, doesn't it? Because clean sheets, just rack up the points. And we think draws are actually okay in the Premier League. So I'm just a bit befuddled, Matt, as to, and I do accept your defence of they thought there was a deduction and now there's not. Fine. That's a reasonable argument. But why put him in the first place if it's a style of football thing? But there you go. Get involved down in the comments on this one. We'll clip this out and put it down Matt's channel, and we've already spoken chapter and verse on the Premier League Check-In podcast on the full show about the whole relegation mix. So there's a bit more about where Leicester fit in there, and get your ideas on where the hell they go next. And finally, Matt, no poll for mouth-watering matchup because it's a bit of an obvious one, isn't it? We've had the kind of modern classic in terms of, I don't know, Wenger versus Ferguson era, Arsenal, Man United, and Mourinho then in Chelsea, and Mourinho versus Wenger. But very much the last decade, the modern classic has been Liverpool and Man City, and generally Klopp and Guardiola. But it's, for the first time, it's Slot and Guardiola. And for the first time, it's Man City on a massive losing streak as well. This is our mouth-watering matchup. And I'm this is confusing me how to process this with no Klopp and Man City on LLLLL.
I would imagine if you did do a poll for this, Ben, Liverpool Man City would have come top with about 90%.
Yeah.
It's a massive, massive game. It's first versus second, but it's not just as simple as that. There's an 8-point gap, and it'll go to 11 if Liverpool win and Liverpool have the home advantage. These two have been fantastic over the last 5-6 years. I mean, in the last 2 years, it's become Arsenal v Man City, and Liverpool have re-emerged.
Good point. Good point.
Credit to Slot, though. I mean, what a job he's doing there, and they just keep finding a way to win. Maybe against Southampton, you could say it's probably one of their least convincing wins of the season, but the fact is 3 points is 3 points. I will add, both playing in the Champions League in midweek. They are both at home. Liverpool are playing Real Madrid, and Ben made the point earlier that Liverpool's 2 home games this week are against the 2 previous Champions League winners, so Real Madrid and then Man City. Man City are at home to Feyenoord, so maybe a slightly easier test, but they're the team that needs to go away to Anfield. And you wonder, Ben, usually Man City going away to Liverpool, it might be, or the Emirates is usually the 2 most difficult games for Man City. Would Man City take a draw? But you look at the table, have they got a win? I think they've got a win, but I don't see it happening because it's 5 defeats in a row in all competitions. I made the excuse that they'd lost 4 in a row because they were all away from home, and at home to Spurs, it'll get easier. 4-0. What was that about? So, they were sliced open like a cake. They need to respond because if they lose to Liverpool, they're in trouble. 11 points, that might be too much.
I genuinely worry about your food analogies. It always goes back to food, doesn't it? Sandwiches and cakes. Tremendous. He's got food on the brain. Get involved in the comments. Let us know what you think about, Well, let me put the question to the comments. If Liverpool do beat Man City, is there any coming back with an 11-point cushion? It's going to be very, very difficult. And also, give us your feedback. We have, if you're a regular watcher of the show, we've switched around the running order to have Matt's moment later in the show. So let us know if you were all good with that. We'll always listen to your feedback, assuming it comes in politely, which it often doesn't on YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, Matt, we're on the Benjamin Bloom Football channel here, but the Matt SB channel is as busy as ever. What's coming up over there?
So for the Premier League fans, we do Premier League predictions. Myself and my sister Sophie, Championship predictions as well. Always got live streams and vlogs coming out, obviously predominantly focusing around Coventry City, including tonight where we take on Burnley away. And I don't know, I feel a little bit confident all of a sudden.
Stop it.
I don't know, Coventry City, no manager bounce maybe. And then obviously we've got League One predictions with Benjamin Bloom. Defo check them out. Really enjoying doing those. So yeah, lots of football content. Feel free to check out the Matt SB channel.
Brilliant stuff. Highly recommend it. And I would highly recommend you join us same time next week for another episode of the Premier League Check-In podcast.